Hello and welcome to Law Weekly. I'm Millicent Walker, standing in for your regular host, Shola Shoyele. On this episode of the program, we turn our attention to the protests across the country calling for an end to police brutality and the reforms which have begun. My guests, Professor Konyi Ajayi, a senior advocate of Nigeria, and Mrs. Chioma Onyenuche-Oko, a human rights lawyer. They gave us their perspective on the reforms and the president's response after days of protests. Some senior citizens in Nigeria are asking the president to look seriously at government reform, which they say is at the heart of what the NSAS protest is all about. I spoke to one of the members, Professor Konyi Ajayi. Thank you so much, Professor Konyi Ajayi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for talking to us. It's been days of reflection on several issues. There's been protests weeks before, up to this particular point. And we heard from the president, some people say finally. What's your reaction to the president's speech as regards the issues, the crisis that took place in the last couple of days?
NSAS is not just about those men in arms that maim and kill and rape and injure the young ones. It's about a plague in our society, about other men in uniform that do exactly the same thing, and also those that are not in uniform that do exactly the same thing. And this is part of what senior citizens in the country came up with in a statement, 41 of them, asking the president to look seriously at governance reform. This is at the bottom of what the children of the youth are talking about.
He said they were in line with the extensive promised reforms of his administration. And of course, he listed some of the other things like the farmer money, trader money, and the promise to lift 100 million people out of poverty in a couple of years. He said to the youth, your voice has been heard loud and clear. Are these not enough, seeing as the way things have accumulated to this point where we are right now?
He says they've abolished SARS. Oh, really? He had a report in 2019 which says he should do something. They've abolished SARS in the past. He abolishes SARS. 3 days later, they say they formed SWAT. Who is deceiving whom? These are not kindergarten children, and we are not imbeciles in this country. We're all reasonable people, and the demands of the youth is for reform, for their benefit. A young man wrote a post and said, you know what? Our future is being burnt, and some people are out there burning the present. We have to be very careful, and the president must breathe peace. Nigeria is 60. I thought he would use the occasion to speak to us at 60 and what he will do, and then tell us what he wants to do in 10 years' time, when people are dying today. Oh, please.
Let's move away from the president's speech to perhaps the federal government's response in some of the states, which is the judicial panels of inquiry for victims and some of the things that a few of them have come up with. What do you make of some of those promises or those panels that have been set up to address the issues?
Well, I mean, using the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, as point of contact for a few others that have done the right thing. One must praise the steps that Sanwo-Olu has taken. I mean, it was right there up front before, this came to a head, offering to set up a fund of 200 million naira, and, he set up his judicial committee of inquiry immediately. Things were done and called for youth participation. But the question we need to ask ourselves is this. So this panel then concludes this report and says, do this about the police, do this about the army, do this about security. Then what? He can't do anything. He has no control whatsoever over any of the men that carry arms lawfully in society. So, yeah, Judicial Commission of Inquiry would probably come up with recommendations as to compensation. It may recommend that people be tried. The Attorney General may try people. But what we know is this: the armed forces is not going to deliver any officer for trial, except the officer has been tried by itself. So what's going to happen? These are the questions that we need to look at. So great as that these panels are, and as they may deal with some of the problems that we have, given the nature of our constitution, the responsibility here still lies with the federal government. The president has betrayed our trust, and he's made that worse, rather than doing things that will begin to build confidence in government. And that would have been, for instance, naming and shaming officers that were involved in the shooting of people in Lagos, just to start with. For him to name officers that have been part of the killing of innocent Nigerians, some of whom have been named, pictures have been shown. And one would have thought that in this last 1 week, he would have ordered the police to have come up with a list of officers that have been involved in these illegal activities, this unlawful crudeness. But he didn't do anything like that. One would have expected him to speak peace to us and not to give veiled threats to the citizens. One would have thought he would not aggravate the situation by conflating the pure, peaceful protest, well organized, disciplined of the youth, and the mayhem caused by miscreants. But although they are miscreants, let us not forget that these are Nigerians. They are poor because of our government. They are illiterate because of our government. They are angry because of our government. They've been displaced because of our government. So we created this set of people. We created the anger. Not many of those people that you see that were looting want to be looters. I am nearly certain that some of them are graduates. They would rather be doing something else. But here we are. We have no hope. And it's not just in Lagos, especially in the northeast and the northwest of the country, where we have really serious insecurity. What is it that this government is doing? Is enough of all this palliative talk? Is enough of all this tokenism? Why can't the federal government, the president, call out the National Assembly and speak to salaries and emoluments of senators and reps? Why can't he speak to that? Why would 1,000, 2,000 people have reserved for them money that will send millions of people to school, would feed millions of Nigerians for a year? Why wouldn't he speak about that? Why wouldn't he speak about real reform in government? These are the things that our youth speak of. These are the things that people that form 63% of our population, people that are responsible for our future, these are the things that they speak of. Don't forget that the president and those around his age represent no more than 5% of the population. He doesn't speak for us, and it is clear he doesn't understand us. He really needs real good handlers, and I hope he would do something. I hope he would change his cabinet. We thought he would look at his security advisors and the men that are heading the security and law enforcement agencies. If he did something like that, then that will calm down. Then we will calm down.
I think my final question should be, who gets to represent, the young person? Isn't it time that, they start at a round table to discuss and perhaps draw their attention further to some of the issues you've raised?
Well, I thought he said he knows what the youth want. Thank God he's got children that are youth. He's got the 5-for-5 plan. And there is a plan that is deeper than that. He knows what this is. He knows the consensus of opinion in this country. He doesn't necessarily need anybody around the table to come to talk to him. He knows what to do. There are enough reports and plans before him. Let him begin to implement those things. The president and his advisors didn't know what to do.
While protesters call for an end to police brutality, states across the country from the west to the east, the north and the south.
It started in Lagos with the governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu inaugurating a panel into police brutality and other complaints.
I encourage everyone that has been brutalized by the disbanded SARS, including families of those who must have had fatality, to present their case before this judicial panel.
This judicial panel of inquiry shall engage in public hearing and shall elicit presentations and testimonies from concerned members of the public.
Over in Taraba State, an 11-man judicial panel of inquiry and restitution for victims of police brutality and other security agencies has been constituted by the Taraba State Governor, Darius Ishaku. The panel, according to the governor, will examine the causes of persistent and rampant cases of police brutality and killings, ascertain the extent of judiciary intervention in reducing frequent cases of police brutality and killings in Taraba State.
The panel also has the following terms of reference: to examine the causes of persistent and rampant cases of police brutality and killings in Taraba State and in Nigeria as a whole, from the perspective of the general public.
In Adamawa State, Governor Umaru Fintiri inaugurated an 11-member judicial panel of inquiry into alleged brutality of the disbanded anti-robbery squad SARS in Adamawa State. This is in line with the directive by the National Economic Council to be chaired by a retired justice of the High Court. The National Economic Council also approved the setting up of a Special Security and Human Rights Committee chaired by the governor to supervise the newly formed police tactical unit and other security agencies in all the states.
To receive and investigate complaints on police brutality or related extrajudicial killings, to evaluate evidence presented and other surrounding circumstances, and draw conclusion as to the validity of the complaints.
Governor Samuel Otom of Benue State appeals to victims of police brutality to come forward with their complaints and seek redress through the Judicial Panel of Inquiry investigating activities of men of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. The governor made the call in Makurdi while inaugurating the 8-man panel with a charge to thoroughly investigate allegations of infractions, recommend compensation for victims, and prosecute any officer found guilty.
It is important to highlight the fact that members of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry have been carefully selected based on their representation and merit, and it is our expectation that they would justify the confidence reposed on them. I therefore call on all of you who have been given this important duty to carry out thorough investigation into the reprehensive activities of the Nigerian police in Benue State, especially SARS, by providing the opportunity for victims to come forward to testify.
Over in Enugu State, Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi is also on his toes, inaugurating a judicial panel of inquiry to investigate complaints of police brutality or related extrajudicial killings. The governor says the judicial panel of inquiry is to conclude its assignment within 6 months.
I enjoin all residents in Enugu to remain law-abiding and go about their normal business. I urge our youth to have faith in this process and remain calm as the outcome will certainly suit our pains. Finally, in Enugu, we reiterate our faith in the Nigerian project and our commitment to a united and prosperous Nigeria that holds hope, justice, freedom, and equal opportunity for every Nigerian, especially the youth, irrespective of religious bent or ethnic distinction.
In the same vein, the Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma inaugurates a judicial commission headed by Justice Florence Duru Igwe.
The panel will also, if they choose this, invite and take evidence from all victims, as well as families and friends of those victims. The panel is encouraged to create a friendly atmosphere to enable victims, their families and friends to speak freely, relay their experiences and grievances.
Welcome back. The process has begun. The Presidential Panel on Alleged Human Rights Violations by Operatives of the now disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, recommends the prosecution of 33 officers, monetary compensation to victims of human rights violations, and recommended public apology for over 32 cases of rights violation. Mrs. Chioma Oyenuche, Chairman, Human Rights Committee, Unity Bar Branch of the NBA Abuja, talks about her expectations in this interview.
The matter of confidence is not, it's entirely different in the sense that we've seen panels of inquiries, we've seen, them sit and make recommendations, and it doesn't appear like anything is done about those findings. So, but not doing anything at all would also defeat, the purpose of justice overall. So I think it's important that we start doing something. It's necessary that these panels of inquiry sit, especially because it would also afford them victims an opportunity to review all they've gone through. It would afford them an opportunity to even onboarding in the abuses that they or their loved ones have suffered.
Where are the various state governors getting, drawing the actions from? Because, for example, a certain group have argued about the legality or otherwise of the NHRC operating without the governing council in place.
The National Human Rights Commission should have a governing council empaneled by government. It's a statutory requirement. And unfortunately, this is a requirement that lies at the step of government. And where government does not do that, of course it has failed in discharging some of its responsibilities as provided by statutes. But then again, my challenge is, I do not think that we should fold our hands and do nothing because government has failed to do their bit. I think that we should focus more in the intentions of this statute. What does the law set out to meet? Justice is the core pursuit in all of this. And if justice is the core pursuit, therefore, should victims of abuses who should ordinarily find some kind of succor in the commission now be left to their fate just because a governing council has not been paneled by government? I don't quite agree. Therefore, my argument will be, since we realize that there are victims of abuses, are we going to all sit and do nothing, therefore making ourselves complicit? Really? That's my perception. Making ourselves complicit in not doing anything.
Some people have said in the past, journalists have been barred, for example, from attending judicial panels of inquiry. Some argue that maybe if it's made more open, it would show a semblance of transparency.
Okay, I'll answer in two folds. One, as per the things that could, give credibility to the panels, it's important that persons of integrity, persons of proven integrity are appointed into those panels. Then, on the other hand, as per transparency, it is necessary that it is open. In fact, it is actually statutory that it is open. It should be open because, yes, you can talk about, the rights of the people to information if you foreclose openness of the process. It must be such that the proceedings can be witnessed by the public. Of course, I do not mean that it should hold in places where everybody just throngs in. No, that's not what I'm saying. But it shouldn't be in camera. And then the press should also have access because they owe a responsibility to disseminate information. And this is a critical information, especially in view of the times that we're in. So having the people feel carried along will greatly assuage, some of the hurts and the anger, and it will make them feel, it will make them have some patience at least.
And just before we go, in Cross River State, the governor, Professor Ben Ayade, has directed that an investigation panel into police brutality be set up as well. But this is coming after a swearing-in ceremony of the acting chief judge in the state.
After days without cases assigned or heard and letters of administration and probate not granted, amongst others, Cross River State now has a new chief judge. The Cross River State governor apologized to the people of the state and lawyers for the delay in their appointment of a new chief judge, saying the state was waiting for communication from the National Judicial Council (NJC), which came in Wednesday last week.
We are here to honor the obligations and provisions of the Constitution, particularly with reference to sections 271 of the Constitution from 1 to 5. The occurrence of the vacancy that has occurred occasioned by the meeting of NJC on Wednesday last week, where NJC took a decision that the next chief judge, the next in ranking, be appointed as acting chief judge. We, as a law-abiding state that believes in the freedom of the judiciary and believes that the NJC is a watchdog that ensures that the judiciary is absolutely free. And I, as a lawyer, believe also in that supremacy of the freedom of the judiciary.
The state governor also charged the new chief judge to ensure justice is done at all times, particularly on the directive of the National Economic Council meeting and Governors Forum, where governors have been given the responsibility to take charge of a peaceful end to the NSAS protests. Cross River State governor also directed the new chief judge to set up an investigative panel into police brutality.
I have no doubt that Cross Rivers will have justice, and justice delayed is not justice denied, because for that 1 month plus, please speed up to ensure that people get proper justice and work hard, stay within the ambits of the provisions of the law, be fair to everybody. You look inspiring, you look God-fearing, and I know you are, and I believe that Cross River will be better for it. Let us also work with you, particularly with the provisions of the Governors Forum meeting and the NEC meeting, where governors have been given responsibility to take charge of the process of a peaceful end to NSAS protest. We are supposed to set up committees and different bodies to liaise with the various aggrieved youths, set up a commission of inquiry to investigate all the people who have suffered police brutality. I'm happy the Commissioner of Police is here in person. You have to work with us to see to those whose loved ones were either killed, maimed, or injured in a just struggle in the course of their struggle for survival.
Oath of allegiance. I,
Justice A.O. Efemita, do solemnly swear.
A newly sworn-in chief judge, Honorable Justice Ayo Efemita, pledged to work in synergy with the other arms of government to ensure the growth of the state. He also promised to ensure justice, insisting that his decisions will be guided by the law.
I also want to thank His Excellency for the takeoff grant. For the entire term that I'll be here as acting chief judge, my duty will be to pray and pray and pray. And I want to call all of you here to join in that prayer so that we resolve this problem that we have in a way that will return our judiciary to the committee of judiciaries in this country.
The state chairman of the NBA, Paul Ebiala, who was also present, believes the swearing-in of the chief judge will bring great relief to the people of Cross River State and the lawyers, as cases can now be assigned.
It brings some great relief to the people of Cross River State, both lawyers and those who come to court as litigants, because to stay for 48 days or so without the head of the judiciary is bad enough, or was bad enough. Nature itself abhors a vacuum. And so when there is a vacuum like this, it is worrisome and it is something that everybody would feel bad about. But we thank God that this has happened today, and the governor has taken time to explain the reason why we have come to this point today. and has apologized also to the whole world why the situation remained until now. But on the whole, we are happy that we now have an acting chief judge so that cases can be assigned and the function of the third arm of government can move on smoothly.
That's our program for now. Until next week, don't forget you can watch this episode and other episodes of the program on our YouTube channel. I'm Millicent Nwaka. Bye for now.